Mrs. Sanyal, if I understood you correctly, you said that we should question whether we want India to move in a direction where more cities are made and whether we should instead preserve and maintain our rural areas. And I was hoping to understand why you think that, given the arguments that Mr. Chakrabarti and others have put forward, that say cities make us more economically productive, they reduce the pace of innovation. Many say that they reduce caste divides, they reduce our environmental footprint. So do you contend these arguments, or do you think that the government in India doesn't have the capacity to develop cities well, and that's why rural areas are a better alternative, or is there something else you see that's better about rural areas?
So I think it's both. I think, just talking as a human being, what do you want from life? So you want to be gainfully employed. You want to have a sense of dignity. You want your children to grow up in a nice environment. I remember when we were growing up, we were taught that if there was, when you meet a stranger, you greet them politely, you say hello, you share your name, you talk to them. If you have a problem, you go to a policeman, right? Nowadays, we bring up our children to say, don't talk to any strangers. If you see someone talking to you, run away. Don't go to a policeman, whatever you do, right? I mean, those things are breaking down, right? Lots of us used to walk to school. I walked to school, right? You don't do that anymore. People don't cycle anywhere because, you don't know whether you're going to come back alive, right? So what you want as a human being, where is that best delivered? And there was a time where it was better delivered in cities because you couldn't get these amenities to rural areas. Now you can. Technology makes it possible for you to live and work in your own space and time. Think of what the internet does for you, right? Working, do you actually have to commute 3 hours to get to your office, to sit there not talking to the neighbor in the cubicle, and then commute all the way back? I think we are living in a new world. And I think we need to start thinking of that new world in a different way. In rural India, you can still sleep in your little chopal outside your house, look at a clean sky, right? You can sleep there and look at the stars. You can't do that in any city today. Like, I was a naval child. I grew up in Bombay, Delhi, here, there, everywhere. In Delhi, we used to sleep outside in the barsati, and you could see the sky. Now nobody dares to do that because it's so unsafe. So I come back, and if I may just finish, I think there needs to be an examination of the rural construct. What do we need as human beings? That sense of community, that sense of all of those things. Of course, cities offer you some things. They do, there's no question about it. But you as a single woman entrepreneur can make a decent living in a village producing things like honey, commercial poultry, tassar, things like that. You have the means, you can live in your own home and have a dignified living, okay? I come back to your second question. Do we know how to manage cities? That's the other reason I disagree with it. We don't. Please, Vishant, go ahead.
I just want to very gingerly disagree about one aspect, which is, we have a lot of economic data now that shows that most innovation that happens, especially in a technologically driven economy, happens from the clustering of people. And it's interesting, when the telephone was invented, people thought, oh, this is the end of cities, people will telecommute. I remember at one point the fax machine was going to be the end of cities, and I bet most of the younger people don't even know what a fax machine is. And so technology, actually, I think the data seems to be showing is clustering us together more, not separating us. I do believe that the technology is also helping rural India, but I would just shift the point a little bit in terms of, I'm not sure it's about rural versus urban,
Sure.
as much as India clearly needs more second and third tier cities that are smaller than just these huge agglomerations that we have today. But I worry, when I look at like the plans for the DMIC, for instance, I think that at a very large level it's a good idea, but then when you look at the cities that are being planned, they again are these auto-oriented kind of massive suburban complexes, instead of building on a lot of the strengths that small town India really has, which is to build off a train corridor and you get a grid of streets and you can walk to school and all of those things. So a place in the middle between rural and urban is, I think, maybe a little bit of the answer.
And Vishal, I don't disagree with you. What I'm saying is that think of our villages. It's not like 5 people. Our villages are large conglomerations where people are clustering. I mean, I think we really need to see Indian villages today and what's happening. And there's a lot of entrepreneurship and there's a great deal of innovation happening at the grassroots. And I argue actually much more than our cities, because our cities are dying. To Abhishek's point, Bombay doesn't have gainful employment for so many people. Let's talk about Mumbai University, home to 600 colleges, one of the greatest universities in all of Asia. It's now in decline. We are not investing in the things that make our city great. And unless we do that, there's no point in having them. So that's what we need to do. More gainful employment, more enterprise, more education, a better environment, more art and culture. I'm so delighted that Terminal 2 has come up. I mean, Shobha Dey says, I haven't seen it, that this is a museum to rival the Louvre. It's fantastic. We need more of that kind of stuff. But there's so little of it happening.
Can you define village in this context for us? I mean, how small are we talking here?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of our villages, you talk about you talk about hamlets, which are 5,000-6,000. You talk about villages, which are good, 15, 20, 30, 40,000 people.
Yeah, but that's where I not so gingerly differ. You see, my point is that these are not he talked about people here. Who is your Palak Mantri of Mumbai? Jayant Patil. Jayant Patil's village is 50,000 people. It's called a village. They are very highly innovative and technology driven and all that. For heaven's sake, that's what I call an urban space. I don't call that a village. I agree with her that everyone doesn't have to be so densely packed and all that like a metro. But it's without making it a semantic issue, these are not, that's why I said that India is already urbanized. Other than that, I agree with you about Pura and all that. The villages which do villaging are, a problem is that they see nice clean star, but they'll do little else. I mean,
the men in the villages do little else, the women are doing lots, let me put it this way.
I like to disagree for a change. Yeah, we are agreeing far too much on everything. But, this is what we have done with our agriculture. For heaven's sake, we are talking, this is a country which has given the concept from agriculture of the disguised unemployment. Which means what? 60% of Indians now are supposed to produce 12% of its produce.
Okay.
We talk of value addition, no? I mean, for heaven's sake, why are you doing that? I mean, I'm not saying they're lazy. There are 4 people who are going and working from, as romantically depicted in Hindi films, morning 5 o'clock to evening 8 o'clock and all that, all sweating and whatever, getting tired at the end. For heaven's sake, why are they doing that? It's not adding value. They should be siphoned off and doing the other things you're talking about, which means that the character of their workplace becomes an urban space. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Abhishek, please.
I think, to Meera's point about villages, I do, in his words, gingerly disagree. Purely because of the fact I agree that we don't know how to run our cities. We equally don't know how to run our villages. You go to our villages and we have lots of sanitation, healthcare, education issues. Some of them technology can resolve, some of them technology cannot resolve. So the fact of the matter is that our cities have to be made to run better. We don't know how to do that today. Isn't a good enough reason to say that the pluses that come from living in a city can be moved away from, and we have to figure out how to make them run better.